Well, g'day, Max there again. Welcome back to the shop. So, been trying to get some filming done today on this. We're moving on to our tailstock quill job, and weather outside's just been absolutely pissing with rain and thunder. It's not been a good day outside. So, what we're going to do, actually I've just done it, so we're going to start on our tailstock quill that we have to remanufacture as it's missing the quill. So we weren't sure what thread was on the thread for it. So it turns out it's a 1/2 inch British Standard Whitworth thread, left hand. Oh, it's no dramas. So we better grind up a piece of tool steel so we can cut the thread, as I don't have a tool for left hand threads due to the lead angle is cocked over the other way, so it's like a mirror image of a right hand threading tool. So we ground up a tool somewhere, there it is. We ground up a piece of high speed steel in the cutter grinder, which is over there behind you, in front of me. Yeah, so we don't get much use out of the cutter grinder, but it's handy to have. We'll get a lot of use out of it shortly once I get it properly set up. But we do desperately have to make a guard for the grinding wheels on it, so there's a couple of different size guards I have to make for it, just to make it a bit safer, just in case. You never know, you know. So anyway, we've had fun and games with that today, so we'll head over and... So first thing I want to do is make sure the axis of the table is running parallel with the grinding wheel. So just got a piece of material there, I'll just hold that lightly with my fingers, traverse the table. Oh, so we're within a couple of thou, that's fine, it's pretty good there. Okay, here's a bit of a sketch of our tool, our threading tool that we're going to grind up, and this is the tool blank that we're going to use. So because we're cutting a BSW, British Standard Whitworth thread, that has an included angle of 55 degrees, so the first face we're going to grind is this face here, so we grind that to half of 55, which is 27.5 degrees. So we'll grind it a straight grind, straight across. So it will be, this edge is the trailing edge of the tool, which represents this face here. Now the trailing edge, we do not need any clearance ground into it, so that can be just a 90-degree grind. Because it's a left-hand thread, the lead of the thread, which will come down here, will provide the clearance necessary. So let's get this side ground and then we'll move on to the other side. We've got a howling storm outside, so bits of trees are flying everywhere. We had a power cut earlier on. When it comes to grinding the other side, it's a different story. We have to account for 3 degrees of lead angle because of the slope of the thread coming down, so the tool doesn't rub, plus 3 degrees of clearance. So this will have a total of 6 degrees and this will have a total of 0. So let's get this tool blank set up in my honky tonk grinding fixture, and we'll do that first edge. So I have a simple setup. It's just a 1, 2, 3 block clamped down onto a couple of other bits of material and an angle protractor so I can set the angle of the tool. So all I have to do is just slacken off the 1, 2, 3 block. And come in close to the wheel. Once we're touching the wheel like that, our angle is set 27.5 degrees. So that's just clamped in place against the 1, 2, 3 block. It's just sitting on a couple of pins that are in there. We'll get the grinder fired up and we'll grind our first angle. Right, well that went easy, so we'll take it out and we'll have a look. So the two studs there just keep it at 90 degrees in relation to the wheel. That's our first edge. So that'll be the trailing edge of the tool, the threading tool. So we'll set up now. What we'll do is we'll relieve a piece out down here and then we'll set up to do our other edge. Okay, just to save a bit of time, I just roughed this out with an angle grinder on that cutaway there. Now as you can see it's discoloured the high speed steel, but it's high speed steel, it doesn't matter if it discolours. You can grind it all day long and have it blue like that. It will not affect the high speed steel. This is a piece of M42 cobalt high speed steel, so it's pretty good stuff anyway. So we'll get a wheel set up and tidy this up. Okay, we're just set up now to tidy up that area that I ran over with the angle grinder. So we've got the tool steel set up running reasonably parallel, as close as it needs to be anyway. So we'll clean this area up, and then what we'll do is we'll dress the wheel and we'll cut the other angle on the tool for the leading edge of the tool. Remember it's a left hand thread, so leading edge is to the rear. Okay. So you can see our tool there starting to take shape. So it's just this edge here which is the leading edge. So we just have to get that to the correct angle. So I swapped over to an 80 grit wheel. It's a fine wheel. I'm hoping it will hold its shape for the back grind of our cutting edge there. So I'll just take a clean up on the other side. It should be good. Okay, so we've inclined the tool down at a 6-degree angle, and this is before we set it around to the 27.5 degree angle. So this angle here gives us the clearance in this area here on the leading edge of the tool. So you've got 3 degrees for your clearance and an extra 3 degrees for the lead of the thread. So in total, when it's cutting, it would give a 3-degree tool clearance. Right, we'll have a look at that. Okay, should be able to see at the bottom we've got a point, and at the top we've still got a flat, so we've got to keep grinding until that flat reduces right down. A little bit of a flat's fine. Ideally I'd like to see half that width of flat. BSW thread has a radius at the crest, so we can hand stone that in, but I would like to see that flat greatly reduced, so we'll take a bit more off. And there's a shot from above. Okay, that should do it, I hope. We're just grinding in some clearance on the underside of the cutting edge, just so it doesn't rub on the bore that we are threading. Okay, we're just going to grind a bit of a top rake on it, so about a 6 or 7 degree top rake, and that'll slope back from the rear leading edge. Okay, there's our finished product. So she's all ready for a test cut. So our angle come up very well. So we've got a nice bit of clearance in here for when we take our cut. Now the trailing edge, that's ground with no clearance. The lead of the thread will provide the 3 degree clearance. The front edge, the edge here that's going to be doing all the cutting, the leading edge, that has 6 degrees, so to allow for 3 degrees of lead angle plus 3 degrees of clearance. So all the cutting will be done on this face. Then we have it's hard to pick it up, but we do have a top rake ground in at a slight angle like that. That's about another 6 degree angle there, as this edge is going to be doing all of the cutting. And we should hopefully have enough clearance underneath. Underneath. So you can see that top rake there. So we'll pop her in the lathe and give it a run. give that a bit of a test fit, see how we're travelling. Tad more to go yet. It's one thing with this lathe, the half nuts have a real bitch of a feel to them. Like they'll grab when you don't want them to grab. Just if you're engaging in that wrong spot, I try and engage it so it just rests on the crest of the thread and then drops in. But that's on this lathe too, why you can't screw cut at a high speed, because the half nuts they won't disengage. It's going in, but it just needs a tad more just to give it a bit of clearance. What I'm doing measuring, I'm just making sure it hasn't pushed up too much of a burr. Let's just take another couple of cuts for some clearance and it should be good. We'll chamfer the front first. Okay. Okay, well that came out, it did what it was supposed to do, and that was a test piece for our 1/2 inch BSW left hand thread, and we did have to pull the tool out a couple of times and just grind a bit of extra clearancing underneath. I'll flip it around and show you. But no, it's cut the thread fine, so now I know it will work when we go to screw cut our final part. The reason we did a test subject is because it's such a small thread. The bore on the thread's only 300 and I think I made it 397 thou. Is when you set up for screw cutting, you normally use your pitch gauge and just verify the pitch you're cutting. Well, it's pretty hard to do that in this case because the thread's so small. So that's one reason why. The other reason was our new tool that we just ground up. It's a good test run for that to see how that managed. Now, I cut the thread fine, but what we did have to do is I did pull it off camera. I pulled the tool out twice, and underneath just gave it a bit of extra clearance there. So what I was doing, I was blackening it up with a Sharpie marker, and I was taking cuts until I heard any noise that wasn't normal, like a bit of a rub noise or something like that. So then you can immediately pick up the wear marks off the Sharpie where you have to give the tool extra clearancing underneath. So we managed to get to full depth without any big dramas. So the tool worked well. So I'll just swing around back to the lathe. So normally when I screw cut, I'll screw cut with my compound 90 degrees this way, unless it's a really big thread. It's just the way I prefer to do it. This left hand thread, we've angled the compound round to 27 degrees. 27 and a half is half of 55, so 27. But the angle that we've got it at is the same angle if you're cutting an external right hand thread. So our cutting edge was on the rear of the tool, so we're pulling the tool back into the bore to cut the thread. And if we had it angled the other way, we'd be cutting on the trailing edge of the tool, which is no good. So, and you would have seen too that we're feeding, because it's a left hand thread, feeding away from the chuck to cut the thread. So that's our compound setup. Well, okay, we had a win in the end. We sorted out our little test piece, so we know our tool works. We had a bit of a run with the cutter grinder to grind up our tool, so I suppose the next logical step is if we machine up this quill. So we'll get that all roughed out, we'll cut the thread, and hopefully it will come out like the one we've just done on the trial. So as you can see, it does pay off to have a trial cut with a new tool rather than risk scrapping a part. You know, if you've got to take the tool in and out, or in this case it was easier to take in and out, but you don't want issues in the middle of cutting a thread on your finished part, because such a small thread, let me tell you, so if you've got to pull that tool out or for any reason try and chase that thread again, it's a mongrel of a job on a small thread, trust me, it is. So cheers for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode where we make the quill. Catch ya.